So I often complain that social media lacks authenticity and honesty. So here we are. Today I'm being real and raw and honest with you guys about the ways in which I failed last year. So we're going to be talking about attempting 75 hard. We're also going to be talking about fear of failure. We're going to be talking about moving overseas from Australia to Europe. And we're going to be also talking about screen time, addiction. So I hope you can learn from my failures and my experiences. Whilst failure tends to have a negative connotation to it, I honestly think it's something that we should start celebrating. Failure is where you learn, right? And learning is never a loss, despite what your bruised ego may tell you. I think it relates to the Japanese concept of kintsugi, of repairing broken pottery with like the gold. And it's about recognizing the beauty and potential in brokenness and understanding that every mistake is an opportunity for growth. Another thing as well, I feel like the visual culture of social media has a lot to answer for, especially in terms of our almost pathological desire to put our best foot forward and constantly save face. It often leads to giving too many fucks about how other people perceive you. Ends up placing self-protection above self-expression, which I really don't agree with. You got to get over your fear of failure and caring too much about what other people think or perceive of you. You'll never get anything meaningful done otherwise. So, with that said, let's talk about the ways in which I have failed and learned. Let's start off with 75 hard. That shit is fucking hard. For those of you who aren't familiar with 75 hard, it is this mental toughness program, not a fitness challenge, where for 75 consecutive days you have to adhere to 5 or 6 rules. And the rules are that you have to do 2 45-minute workouts a day. One of them has to be outdoors. You can't drink alcohol. You have to stick to a diet of your choosing. You can't have any cheat meals. You have to take a progress picture every day. You have to drink a gallon of water every day. And you have to read 10 pages of a book every day. So that's 8 rules. And basically several of my mates were doing 75 hard. So I thought I'd give it a crack as well. Except the timing of when I attempted it was just a bit off. Like I was about to move overseas. My mates were already like 25 days in. So I figured I'd just do 50 hard instead of 75 hard. So that way I'd finish in time, like a couple weeks before I was due to like move overseas. So that way I could have a send off basically. Got to about like 30 days. Maybe that's generous. That's probably very generous. I think I got roughly like 20, 25 days in before I went camping with some friends, and lo and behold, the last thing I wanted to do was work out on the sand. I still kept my sobriety going for 50 days though, which is almost 2 months, and I even celebrated my birthday sober. So what did I learn from attempting 75 hard? I fell in love with yoga. It also made me, I discovered yin yoga through doing 50 hard and like signing up to a yoga studio. And oh my God, if you guys haven't done yin yoga, what the fuck are you doing? Yin yoga is a bit different from your usual vinyasa flows and energizing flows of yoga in that you hold poses for a longer period of time. So it's kind of like a mixture of like meditation, but it also cultivates this like bodily awareness through focusing on your breath as well as like focusing on the discomfort. So another big thing about yin yoga is like finding your edge, right? So you hold a pose for like 5 minutes and you can find the edge of like what is comfortable and what is like really uncomfortable for you to hold for that period of time. It really helped me develop my relationship with myself and really helped cultivate bodily awareness. So this whole concept for this podcast came from a yin yoga session. And I was like lying there and then it just like popped up in my brain. Like I've worked in the tech industry, I've worked in the crypto industry. I'm an anti-tech futurist. I'm just really concerned about the development of technology and the ways in which it's really impacting us collectively. Long tangent aside, do yin yoga. Oh, another thing that I learned from attempting 75 hard or 50 hard is that I think the programs are great for autumn and winter, less so during spring and summer. You know, just as nature changes through seasons, so does the human body. And I feel like summer is a period of time for high energy, for socializing, for making memories, for having fun, even if that means getting a little bit drunk. It isn't a period of time to be like super strict on yourself. While I still went to raves and partied and had fun sober during the summer when I was attempting 75 hard for the first time, I think for a lot of people, they will forego socializing altogether. So life is about balance, you feel me? If you do 75 hard, I highly recommend you do it during autumn or winter. But that said, it is literally summer over in Australia, and on January 3rd I started 75 hard again. I'm currently 20 days in though. Round of applause. We celebrate the small wins in this household, okay? 20 days in. And I'm fucking loving it, honestly. Another thing that I learnt from attempting 75 hard is the value of being sober and noticing that I just had way more energy to do the things that I wanted to do. Like I did run club every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. followed by like ice baths. You know, I didn't ride off every Sunday being anxious, wondering about the shit that I've dribbled and, you know, being on damage control and feeling sorry for myself until like the late afternoon. Like I do not. Oh my God, the anxiety, man. I'm getting war flashbacks right now. I do not miss that at all. I don't know, it was just really affirming knowing that I could still have fun whilst being sober. Okay, the next way in which I've failed is a big one. The way that I failed last year is thinking that I had something to lose and subsequently playing life passively. So this feels a little uncomfortable to share, but here it goes. I came from nothing. My parents were high school dropouts. My cousins were involved in gangs and knocked up at the age of 16. I got kicked out of home around 14, 15, and I was like couch surfing for a little bit. Thankfully, at that age, I knew that the only way to change my destiny was to get educated. You know, I graduated from high school as dux or top of my class. I got into one of the best university in Australia with scholarships. I studied in Milan and then I did internships in Berlin during my undergraduate studies. And then I was selected as one of the top 150 students around Australia by the Australian government through the New Colombo Plan scholarship, which is worth over $70,000. And then when I graduated and got my first corporate gig, I started thinking that I had something to lose, which was like a fledgling corporate career. And I went from playing life quite aggressively and taking the initiative and going after my goals fearlessly to being passive, a perfectionist, playing it safe. Anything that resembled risk and that could potentially disrupt the financial security and stability that I had worked so hard to obtain, that would get a wide berth from me. I became complacent in a way, thinking that continuing in a cushy corporate career was the risk-free option. But when I knew that I wanted to change from corporate, the risk of jumping ship felt too great, too threatening to my aforementioned security that I worked so hard for. And so I didn't take action at all. But taking no action is still an action, right? And often it's perceived as the least risky option due to asymmetric information and fear of the unknown. But everything in life is a risk. Everything in life is a trade-off. And playing it safe in life is a dangerous way to live. Only have one chance to roll the dice. You can choose to get caught up in the corporate rat race, or you can choose to take risks and aggressively go after what you want. There's a quote by Steve Jobs which resonates so much in this regard, and I really highly recommend reading Make Something Wonderful by Steve Jobs. He says, "Don't be a career. The enemy of most dreams and intuitions, and one of the most dangerous and stifling concepts ever invented by humans, is the career. Many people find what they believe to be safe harbors, lawyers and accountants, only to wake up 10 or 15 years later and discover the price they paid." Sheesh. When I read that, and to read that posthumously from Steve Jobs after he's passed as well, just makes it way more powerful in my opinion. You know, I would add that a career is as provocative and stifling a concept as money. These are often the lighthouses from which we map and charter our lives. We often conflate our purpose for our careers and net worth. I'm not going to sit here and preach that money isn't important. I'm not an out of touch idealist, but I think it's important to remember that money and a career is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. You know, I have older friends who followed the investment banking, software engineering, and lawyer routes, and sure, they're flying first class, but they are not at peace within themselves. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in the way that they carry themselves. Like they're dead in the eyes. They're spiritually bankrupt. And I think it's important to understand that just because you can do X, Y, Z doesn't mean that you should do X, Y, Z. And so what I mean by this is that I think a lot of smart people get caught up in the fact that just because, you know, they're smart enough to become a lawyer or smart enough to become a software engineer or smart enough to pursue investment banking, just because it makes money, they think that is what they should do. Life is too short to not go after what you want. You are in control of your fate. I'm really outing myself on this podcast episode. Next failure and mistakes that I've made last year is being addicted to overstimulation, particularly nicotine, and being addicted to my phone. This is another uncomfortable topic because let's be honest, it is so embarrassing being addicted to nicotine, especially in the year of our Lord 2024. Like, are you not embarrassed? Oh my God, I'm outing myself here. I'm so ashamed. Dude, I actually cringe so much. Back in 2021, before like vaping really hit Melbourne and Sydney, I was ahead of the curve, right? I was always an early adopter. But in this case, it was embarrassing because I remember like uploading stories of me vaping in 2021 and it makes me want to go into the garage and turn my car on without opening the garage door. It makes me want to suffocate and asphyxiate on carbon monoxide, bro. No! Anyways, I went from never, ever taking a drag of a cigarette in my life to one day sucking on a blueberry ice USB stick and it was game over for me. It was game over. I think the fact that I never had a dart before I started vaping just makes it even more embarrassing. It's just like, babe. Oh, babe. I became addicted so quickly. It doesn't help that I'm an ADHD girly and people with ADHD are very prone to addiction. So I became addicted real quick and I didn't even, guys, if you want to trigger my fight and flight response, just ask me how much money I've spent on disposable vapes. I don't even want to think about the amount of landfill I've contributed and the amount of money I have spent on fucking digital cigarettes, bro. That's so embarrassing. I ended up quitting when I moved overseas, thank God, last year, after probably 2 years of being addicted to Nick. And I also knew that I struggled as well with social media and being on my phone. Now that I'm like off everything, like the difference in how I feel is like night and day. You know, I went from being chronically overstimulated, tired, vaping 24/7, constantly like checking notifications and replying to people, you know, screen time over 5 hours each day. Couldn't sleep or sit still for the life of me. Now, like I'm sober, have got a very regulated nervous system. I can actually sleep well, prioritizing my health and my sleep, and will gladly forgo social media like months at a time. Like the difference in how I feel is incredible. If any of that resonates with you, like if you feel really tired, like kind of on edge, anxious, overstimulated, like you can't focus on anything. Whenever you do try to relax, you're like focusing on like fucking 3 different forms of media at once between like Netflix and your phone and something else, like that resonates with you, you are probably overstimulated, babe. And I really highly recommend doing things to help down regulate your nervous system, whether that is like through breath work or yoga. Another way in which I have failed. Another way in which I have failed is not listening to my intuition when I moved overseas. And I know this may seem contradictory to the life is short, take risks advice that I just gave to you earlier, but hear me out. One thing that I'm very grateful for last year is reading The Body Keeps the Score by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. I learned about how holistic practices like yoga, music, breathwork, and meditation actually have a very strong scientific basis behind them. And I realized that I was out of touch with my body and really started to deepen my meditation practice. In the spirit of taking risks, I bought a one-way ticket to London. You know, I traveled and hiked around Europe for 3 months. And towards the end of the 3 months, which is the end of the Schengen visa period for Australians, I was like, okay, shit, I have to find somewhere to live. And I was like, fuck it. I'll give the Netherlands a go. Like, I've lived in Italy, I've lived in Germany. Let's give the Netherlands a red hot crack, right? So I moved to the land of the clog without a visa, without accommodation, without a job lined up, right? I booked this hotel, and the dude at the hotel reception is like, babe, you know there's a housing crisis all over the Netherlands, right? I'm like, word? Really? So anyways, I'm paying up the ass for a hotel, and I was like so annoyed because all the rental agency sites in the Netherlands are like totally capitalizing off the fact that there's a housing crisis and a lot of immigrants wanting to get, you know, a place to live, a roof over their head, right? And so they require you to pay like, some of them are like up to 35 euros per month, which is around like 50 Australian dollars, just so you can message landlords and be like, please, sir, please, madam, please take my money. Like, do I look like a bootlicker to you? I decided to try and find a place to live through Facebook Marketplace. I went to a couple of inspections. Again, I'm solo in a country. I'm like several thousand kilometers away from anyone that I love. So I go to a few inspections and everything is all fine and dandy until this one particular housing inspection that I went to. So I get to this housing inspection, and mind you, it's like really far out of the city. And I pull up, and there's these 2 jungers on the balcony of the apartment, right? And when I say jungers, like, I'm not just being like facetious and exaggerating. Like, they had no teeth, right? And they were clearly high as a kite. I don't know what they were on. I don't know if they were on the devil's lettuce or maybe something a little bit more sinister. They were not on this planet. So anyways, I like ring the doorbell, and one of the jungers is like, oh, who are you here for? I'm like, oh, I'm visiting such and such for the housing inspection. And like, oh, he's your housemate. Coming up, we're on the 2nd floor. And I'm thinking in my brain, like, oh, fuck. Scaling up the stairs to go to the housing inspection. I'm thinking in my head, like, oh my God, Natalie, like, you are about to get rolled, bro. Like, this is the day you learn not to organize housing inspections from Facebook Marketplace. They open the door and I go inside, and immediately they shut the front door and they lock it. Immediately, every thought is going through my brain. Like, you're about to get rolled. You're about to get your shit rocked. You're going to end up getting trafficked, end up on fucking Epstein's Island. Although I'm probably too old for that. Everything is going through my brain. I'm thinking, I barely know how to play AFL. There's no way I can defend myself against 2 jungers who probably have superhuman strength right now due to the substances that they are on. Everything is going through my brain. And they just like came across as like a bit cold or whatever. And anyways, I start talking and they hear the Australian accent, and immediately their behavior and like entire demeanor changes. They like warm up to me so quickly. They're like, oh my God, are you Australian? I'm like, g'day mate, how's it going, brother? Start putting on the accent even more strongly. I got out of there, it was fine, but I was like, fuck, I really should like cancel all my housing inspections, except there was one place that I also had booked, which was for the day after. And I was like, I'm just going to keep this because this apartment is fucking incredible and I really want it and I have a good feeling about it. And it was like an industrial New York style loft. Like, the floor to ceiling height of this apartment was fucking incredible. like an amazing price for what it was. And miraculously, I went to the housing inspection and I got it the next day. Long story short, I moved to the Netherlands without a job, without a visa, without a com, but I managed to get that all sorted within like the first week. But as I began to settle in, interestingly, I still had this kind of deep feeling of dread, like this really weird, funny gut feeling, right? On one hand, I was extremely grateful to be in Europe. The one thing that I absolutely love about Europe is like the proximity to everything, you know, especially coming from Australia, where like to travel internationally is like several hours via plane. But on the other hand, something about being based in the Netherlands just didn't feel right. Like it didn't feel like home. Initially, I put it down to the initial 3-month period of discomfort, particularly when you move to a new environment. And I really subscribe to this goggins-esque mindset of like mind over matter. Oh my God, I was such a cuck for the idea growth happens outside your comfort zone and like seek discomfort. But like discomfort comes at a price, babe, especially when you are seeking discomfort over an extended period of time. In my experience, when I fucking moved internationally and was seeking discomfort and really trying to push myself outside my comfort zone, I found that I started experiencing real bad anxiety, especially as someone who doesn't really experience a whole lot of anxiety. That was like, it was like a tsunami on me, bro. My resting heart rate peaked at 80 BPM. My insomnia flared up. I had the worst insomnia. I could not sleep for more than like 5 hours. On top of that, I started experiencing like real bad heart palpitations from my anxiety. I tried to discharge this anxious energy through running. So I literally started running half marathons, dude. I was trying the best I could to self-soothe with like really healthy coping mechanisms. So I was like running all the time. I was like meditating all the time. Girl, my nervous system was fried the fuck out. My nervous system was more fried than those bloody jungers. And I just thought that I had to persevere and push through it instead of listening to my body. And you know, so I stubbornly stuck it out in the Netherlands for a few months. The feeling wasn't as acute as it was in the beginning, but it never subsided. Ignored those feelings in my body for so long, then my body started sending me signals that I just couldn't ignore. Like I started getting a really bad irregular heartbeat, you know, atrial fibrillation. I literally got notifications on my Apple Watch being like, bitch, your heart is out of whack, bro. Fix this. Chronic stress as well from the massive lifestyle change. It just wore me down so much. Like it absolutely destroyed my immune system. It destroyed my gut health, which is so interrelated with your immune system. And I kept on getting sick. Like I would get sick like every 2 weeks. My skin was in shambles. My hair was falling out. Like, girl, I was in my flop era. Long story short, my friends and family basically gave me an intervention. Because even after all of this, one thing about me is like I'm a really stubborn motherfucker and I really, really hate giving up. Like I really struggle with that. And that's also because not only was I a cuck to this Goggins style mind over matter attitude, I was also very much a cuck to like all or nothing logical fallacies in my brain. Like I was very black and white. I'm like, if I don't live in the Netherlands for the next year, then I failed. Bitch, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to give up. It's okay to quit. A lot of life is about recognizing when to quit. A lot of financial investing is about learning how to ride the wave and learning when the fuck to get off that wave and like take profits, baby. So anyways, I'm back in Australia and I am so grateful to be back in Australia. My nervous system is like finally not dysregulated. I can sleep, I can rest. I'm not fucking stressed out of my brain. I'm all about seeking discomfort, but like obviously within reason, and I don't think seeking discomfort should come as a trade-off to your health and to your well-being. Yeah, you just gotta really listen to your gut feelings, bro. Gut feelings never lie. The intuition never lies. And I think the moral of the story here is like you gotta pay very close attention to your body because your body doesn't know how to lie to you. Whereas you gotta pay very little attention to your mind because your mind is constantly lying to you all the time. That is some of the ways in which that I have failed last year. Be very curious to hear some of the ways in which you have failed as well. So feel free to send me a DM, join the discussion over at Futurist Frequency on Instagram. I'd love to hear and celebrate the ways in which that you have failed. I also, again, highly recommend reading Make Something Wonderful by Steve Jobs. That's it from me. I will see you next week. Bye.